Welcome to the Variables module of Elementary Statistic. In this module, you will learn what a variable is and how to understand variable classification. Variables have two main characteristics. First, they are attributes that describe something, and second, they can vary in value. For example, consider the following variables that describe cats. The variables are fur color, weight, age, and breed. Each of this is an attribute of a cat. And the attributes can vary in value. For example, fur color may be black, white, gray, or brown. Weight may be 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds, or 20 pounds. Age could be 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, or 19 years. And breed could be Siamese, Coon, Persian, or Bengal, to name a few. Some variables are described with numeric values. For example, weight and age are described in numbers. Other variables are described as category values. These are not described numerically. These category and numerical values define two different types of variables, qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative variables represent categories. That's why they're described as categorical variables. Qualitative variables are described in words. Quantitative variables, on the other hand, represent quantities. They are described with numbers. Consider an example to contrast qualitative and quantitative variables. For example, the variable weight described in pounds could be a qualitative or quantitative variable. It is a variable because it describes an attribute of something, and the value can vary. If it's a qualitative variable, it will be a category described with words. If it's a quantitative variable, it will be a quantity described in numbers. In this case, pounds defines a quantity. It's described in numbers, so this is a quantitative variable. Now consider the variable weight described in terms of heaviness or lightness. In this case, heavy and light are two categories. It's not described in numbers, it's described in words. Therefore, weight, when described by heaviness or lightness, is a qualitative variable. These two examples show that any attribute could be described qualitatively or quantitatively. We've just learned two different variable types, qualitative and quantitative. Within the realm of quantitative variables, there are two different types as well, continuous and discrete. A continuous variable is a variable that can take on any value. A discrete variable is one that can take on only a certain set of values. For example, time is a continuous variable. It can take on any value. On the other hand, the number of sheets of paper in a stack is a discrete variable. It can only take on certain values, namely whole values. Consider an example. For the variable of a runner's pace described in minutes per mile, is this variable continuous or discrete? A continuous variable can take on any value, while a discrete variable can only take on certain values. In this case, a runner's pace could take on any value. It could be 6 minutes per mile, 6 minutes and 1 second per mile, 6 minutes and 1/2 a second per mile. You get the picture. There is no limitation on the values that the variable can take on. Therefore, runner's pace described in minutes per mile is a continuous variable. On the other hand, consider the number of runners in a race. Remember that if this is a continuous variable, it can take on any value, but if it's a discrete variable, it can only take on certain values. In this case, it's impossible to have anything but a whole number of runners. That is, you can only have a number like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. You can't have half of a runner in a race. Therefore, this is a discrete variable because the variable can only take on certain values. We've just reviewed the variable types. There are qualitative variables, which represent categories and are described in words, and quantitative variables, which represent quantities and are described in numbers. Within the realm of quantitative variables, there are continuous variables which could take on any value and discrete variables which are limited to taking on only certain values. This concludes our variable description module.